Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call tonight's meeting to order. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please. Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Tonight we do have a closed meeting. There's a recommendation that a closed meeting of council be held pursuant to section 239-2 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of considering the following subject matters. 4.1 is the closed council minutes from April 17th. As well, we have a procedural workshop with Denise LaBelle Jelinas, PRP-CMO, for the purpose of educating or training the members. Can I have a motion to go into closed, please? Deputy Mayor, and seconded by Councillor Prendergast. All in favor? And carried. We're now in closed. So everybody, it is May 1st at 7 p.m. I wanted to welcome you to our open session. Before we get into our national anthem, I just want to acknowledge that today is the Deputy Mayor's birthday. Happy birthday, Deputy Mayor Taylor. It is also National Doctors Day, so we should take a moment to thank all of our physicians and our doctors for everything they do in our community. And with that, if you are able, please rise for the singing of our national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public who's connecting via telephone is reminded to please press *6 to mute and unmute, and to please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Tonight, before this open session, we did have a closed meeting of council. There's a recommendation that the closed council minutes from April 17th be received, and that the procedural workshop, Denise LaBelle Galines, PRP CMO, for the purpose of educating or training matters, the members be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Sherwood, any comments or questions? I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. There is a recommendation that the minutes of the following meetings be approved. It's the council meeting minutes from April 17th. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and seconded by Councillor Sherwood. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We do have a presentation tonight, which we will start out with by Patty Thomas from 337 Broadway regarding Bill 74, Missing Persons Amendment Act 2023. Come on up, Ms. Thomas. If you can just have a seat there, turn on the mic, and the floor will be yours.
Good evening, Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor, and fellow councillors. My name is Patty Thomas, and I'm here before you today, not only as an advocate for my daughter, Emma, who lives with autism, but for the vulnerable population in our community to address Bill 74, Missing Persons Amendment Act 2023. Bill 74 was introduced by MPP Monique Taylor to fill a gap in the current emergency alert system and bring forward a new vulnerable persons alert. MPP Taylor was inspired to bring this bill forward after the tragic passings last year of Draven Graham, an 11-year-old boy with autism from Lindsay, Ontario, and Shirley Love, a senior with dementia from Hamilton. Both were vulnerable people, and they would not have been covered under the current emergency alert available. They would, however, have been covered under the new alert being proposed. This bill, if passed, amend the Missing Person Act 2018 to include a definition of a vulnerable person, add a new vulnerable persons alert, and amend the current reporting requirements to include vulnerable persons alert. An alert of this kind would be an additional tool for police forces to use to help locate a missing vulnerable person in a targeted regional fashion. This alert would help keep our loved ones safe and bring them home. Unfortunately, Bill 74 was sent to the Standing Committee on Justice Policy for review and hasn't been brought back to the table for the public debate. Not to mention, our provincial government is trying to pass off Project Lifesaver as a substitute for this alert. While Project Lifesaver is a great tool, but it is not what we need. This alert would be beneficial for our autism community, as well as many autism families worrying about their family members who have no sense of danger and may not present as a vulnerable person. There has been over 100,000 people sign the petition for the vulnerable persons alert. I'm asking Council to support the Bill 74 by adopting a motion of support to be sent to Queen's Park. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. Was there questions from members of Council? Councillor McIntosh? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think that what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I do just want to point out, I mean, I know Project Lifesaver has its detractors and whatnot. The good news is for our area, there was funding for that just announced recently. So I think that's positive. And the OPP are going to be receiving training to help them understand this further, which is relatively new, really. So that's, I think, two positive steps in addition to what you're describing. So to me, the more things that we can do as a community and as support departments, the better. So I applaud you for being here and for pushing forward what you're doing. But again, there's those other two things that are happening as well, which is just going to couple nicely with what you're describing. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Councillor McIntosh, did you have something as well? Any other members of council? Now, Ms. Thomas, I know that during the last term of council, we did pass at our local council the Dravens alert. We did do a motion of support for that. And this, I guess, would just be one step further. Can you just clarify where the difference is? This is the actual bill itself, where the motion that we passed originally was supporting the idea of the bill, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so this is just, it's just changing a few amendments with the bill. So it's just a little bit, I guess, different than the Dravens alert. It's just adding some more things to change.
Thank you for the clarification. Any additional comments or questions? Was there a member of council who was interested in moving that motion at this time? Councillor McIntosh, and seconded by Councillor Stevens. So the motion then would read to support Bill 74 and to direct staff to write a letter of support that could be sent to the provincial partners and to the members of Dufferin County. Good.
Yes.
Okay, clarity on that. Okay, was there any other questions or comments on that? No, I'll call Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through your worship. Have you taken this to county council?
No, I haven't.
That may be something you might want to consider, because then you're going to hit mayors of all the municipalities in Dufferin County.
Yeah. I have went to Queen's Park because I am a board of directors for the Ontario Autism Coalition as well. So we have addressed this at Queen's Park, but it hasn't gone anywhere.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Was there additional questions? Then I will call the vote on the motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Up next, we're going to move into staff reports. We will start with staff report on item 12.1, which is the 2023 final tax rates. It's report CPS-2023-27. The recommendation is that report CPS-2023-27, 2023 final tax rates be received, and that council pass a bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of taxes required for the town of Orangeville for the year 2023 and for the collection of County of Dufferin and education taxes. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Was there questions or comments by members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that item is carried unanimously. 12.2 is the conversion of staff position, junior help desk technician, CPS-2023-25. The recommendation is that report CPS-2023-25, conversion of staff position, junior help desk technician be received, and that council approve a one-year contract, junior help desk technician position in accordance with report CPS-2023-25. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood, and seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Was there questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote then. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Item 12.3, staff position, application support analyst contract, CPS 2023-28. The recommendation is that report CPS-2023-28 staff position, application support analyst contract be received, and that council approve the addition of an application support analyst one-year contract position. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh. Was there questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to talk about the band level, and from what I understand of what the descriptions are about what they're doing. So it's not too often when we talk about technical things that I actually understand what they're doing, but I actually understand what they're doing, and I was surprised at the band level, and maybe I'm just not grasping why it's at that level.
Who would like to take that item? Ms. Landry?
Actually, for this particular position, we have run it through the job evaluation process, and based on the education and experience required, as well as the responsibilities of the job, this is where it has landed. So it has gone through the review process.
Deputy Mayor, any follow-up? Is there any additional questions? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Item 12.4 is the sensitive receptor program update. The recommendation is that report CMS-2023-11 sensitive receptor program update be received. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, and seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Councillor McIntosh, you've got a question?
Thank you. I thought I was promoted there. I do have a question. I've never liked the sensitive receptor program. However, I understand it. I know why it's in place. But I read the report, and there's I don't see any follow-up. If a sensitive receptor moves, passes away, or is cured, there is no follow-up. I just wondered if there could be follow-up, and with 20 to 25 sensitive receptors, maybe, we could take the lead and phone those people. It's just a suggestion.
Ms. Savage?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Post. Each sensitive receptor must apply annually, and if they do not apply, then we assume that they no longer need the sensitive receptor program. But with the 25 to 30 applicants that we have that are successful, we can check in with them. We do have some people that we are in contact with because some of the things change within their life, so we are having chats with them, but we could follow up.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Savage. The piece about this this policy, I've never liked it either. I wish that 8 years ago I was on council because I would not have voted for this in the first place. It's here now. Not really interested in dragging it up. I appreciate what's being done here with the extra space. I think it will help out somewhat. But the report, to me, what I think I was hoping for is that we would go back and say, is this program effective? Did it do what we thought it was going to do? And my feeling is it's not doing what we thought it would do. I think it causes controversy. It allows neighbors who don't like each other who don't like each other to cause havoc for other neighbors by causing this. There is people out there for sure that have these issues, and they should be respected. So please don't phone me and tell me I don't understand the issue. I do. I just think that it's abused at certain times. So I was hoping that we would see and do some sort of audit. Is this thing still a worthwhile endeavor or not? I would say it's not. That would be my premise. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think of that, but I think this is positive. It's just I'm not sure we still know if this is a good thing or not.
Councillor McIntosh?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Deputy Mayor Taylor, I don't like it either. I think it can lead to abuse. I'm just wondering, like, I know we can't give medical information out and stuff like that, but if the receptor was to get a doctor's note, say, just saying that they are a sensitive receptor, they'd have to pay for it, obviously, and it may be good for 2 or 3 years. Like, you wouldn't ask them every year to get a doctor's note, but maybe that would be a way to solve the problem that we have. Thank you.
Ms. Savage, do you have any ideas?
Thank you, Mayor Post. So we are open to recommendations from council. We can do a further audit. Staff will take it back. We do know that what the sensitive receptor program initially intended to do, on paper, it's doing that. So if you are impacted by smoke from a fire, you are able to apply to be a sensitive receptor, which means that the town will not be issuing a building permit 45 meters from the property boundary. And there is no questions asked at the time when the applicant would like the assistance of a sensitive receptive application. We could maybe make more of a thorough intake process. And if staff had if we were granted the ability to evaluate whether or not we felt it was warranted, then that may be helpful in applying who is eligible for the program.
Okay, additional questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. I too would not have voted in favor of this. I can see sometimes it can be neighbors against neighbors pitted. I kind of would like to expand on this a little bit before actually approving this, and maybe put it back to staff to see if we can come up with a more criteria within the application process to really see if some of these people that are applying, it's justified. Because I too have a real problem with this. And so I'm wondering if the rest of my council is open to me putting a motion on that we refer this back to staff to look at the actual eligibility criteria, what we can get. Like, we may not be able to legally allow for any type of medical proof, but I really do see neighbors pitting against neighbors here, and I just don't like this whole thing to begin with. But like everyone else, don't get me wrong. If you have issues, don't call me. I am sensitive to that too, but I really think we have to be very cautious of that. And just one more thing before the long-term care homes and stuff like that, they're automatically in that. They don't have to apply every year, because you were saying that the criteria seems you have to apply, but obviously there's a whole slew of people. So,
Ms. Savage?
Yes, that's correct. They're a standing sensitive receptor applicant. They don't have to reapply. And if I may, we could determine eligibility criteria, but I would caution us and say we are not health practitioners. We are not equipped to evaluate the status of somebody's health and then decide whether or not they are eligible for this. If it helps, it's burdensome on staff to do this annually. So if there is no merit in the program, then maybe we can assess that.
Ms. Savage, did you have a plan to revisit this at the end of, like, within a couple of months and bring another report back to council?
There was no plan, but there could be. There could be.
That was my question. Ms. Innes?
Sorry, maybe Carolina could let us know, the clerk. It is scheduled for a review, but I think it's much later out. I think we're over a year out in the review. So if council wishes, we could ask for the review to come sooner and could evaluate all the options, as well as I would suggest looking at comparative municipalities and what they provide. I'm not aware of a municipality within proximity of us that provides this, because it is quite cumbersome on staff.
Councillor Sherwood?
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. I think we should just leave it on the work plan as scheduled. I don't want to put extra workload on staff right now. Let's go ahead with this as it is now, and know that we really want to address that when it comes up in the work plan as scheduled.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, your worship. So it is a few years out. I'll recall the actual number, actual year, but I know that it is a few years out. Perhaps what I can do is I can take it back for our next regulatory bylaw review update to council, and I can flag that for council. And then at that point in time, you can see if there's something that you would like to swap out in lieu of that.
Okay, wonderful. So at this time, then we'll leave it with the motion that's on the floor, which is just to receive this report. And we know that Ms. Khan will bring that back with the bylaw. Deputy Mayor?
If I may, I guess through you to the clerk, the thing that's missing for me with this report is I just want the fire department, and so our acting chief Richardson and his team, I would like them to tell us what they think. Is this a good program? Yes or no? And I can tell you, my conversations with them would say no. So I think that's key. And we should have him come to a meeting and share this with us. And there's nothing wrong with doing that sooner rather than later. And that's kind of what I thought we were going to get, was something from the fire department that would share that information. So that's what my request would be, is if we could have him come and yes or no, answer the question.
Okay, very good. So at this time, we will leave it as a motion to receive, and staff can take that as a note to walk away with, and hopefully we can get something back then, but we won't put a timeline on that. We'll just leave it as this for now. We have a mover and a seconder on the floor. Was there any last comments? No, seeing none. Deputy Mayor?
I'd have the request to have the fire department come to the meeting.
Would you like to amend the motion then?
I would, yes. I would like the fire department to come in the short term and offer a report on what their thoughts are, what their opinions are on this piece. Council over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Ms. Savage?
So Acting Chief Richardson can join us at a council meeting. I know that through conversations that I've had with both the administrative staff and the acting chief. As I mentioned, this process is quite burdensome and it is a moving target and there's not a lot of consistency to it. So you will hear that mirrored in the comments of the acting chief. If you'd like, if it's the will of council, then we can return and have an open discussion over it.
Madam Clerk?
Through your worship, just hearing the discussion, if that is the will of council, then I would say, as opposed to just booking a presentation, then perhaps it should just come back as a report once staff has had an opportunity to look at it and do that research. I don't know if 4 to 6 weeks is something that Ms. Savage thinks is reasonable, but my recommendation would be to request a report back from staff that provides sort of that commentary that the deputy mayor is looking for, and with the option of, does council want to delete that portion of the bylaw or not? If you don't, if you determine that you want to make further changes, then I can add it to the regulatory bylaw review work plan. Would that work?
Yep, that works well. So we will vote. Okay, so seconded by Councillor Sherwood, so moved by Deputy Mayor that we'll have a report back from the fire team and staff to let us know about the merits of the program. So that's the amendment to the motion, which is moved by you and seconded by Councillor Sherwood. So we'll vote on the amendment first. Deputy Mayor.
I'm sorry the reason it's so important, and I brought this up 6-8 weeks ago, is because we're at it now. If we wait, like the season passes, this is the time. We need to get at this now because the phone calls are going to start. People are going to want to be out. We owe it to the people in town to have something now. Yeah.
Councillor Sherwood.
And your worship, just to be mindful for staff and the fact that we do have an acting chief right now that maybe has the burden of a lot of issues on the plate. Can you tell us realistically how much time he needs to bring that report back? Can it be done within a 4 or 6 week period?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post, I'm just looking at my virtual calendar. So in a month's time, we'd prepare a report to be reviewed by the leadership team, and we will return mid-June. Okay.
Perfect. Any final comments or questions? So I will call the vote on the amendment, please. All in favor? And the amendment's carried unanimously, and we need to vote on the original motion, which was to receive, which was already moved and seconded. So I'll call the vote on that item. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously as well. Item 12.5 is the interim community emissions reduction target. The recommendation is that report INS-2023-27 interim community emissions reduction target be received and that council adopt an interim community emissions reductions target of 10% below the 2016 levels by 2030 and 40% below the 2016 levels by 2040 to align with the interim community target set out in the 2021 Dufferin Climate Action Plan, and that council directs staff to develop a community climate action plan in collaboration with Dufferin County's Climate and Energy Division. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, and seconded by Councillor Stevens. Was there any questions or comments? Councillor Andrews and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and through you to either Mr. Koselleck or Ms. Thompson. I enjoyed reading this report, as all of us are certainly conscientious of what's happening in our world. A couple of questions, one of which is, what do we need to do to hit the first target? And then secondly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but is there going to be any financial impact in going ahead with this?
Mr. Koselleck?
Through your worship, I'd like to introduce Kate Thompson, who's part of our sustainability coordinator for the town, and maybe she'll be able to give a bit of an overview and also respond to the questions. Kate's available online, and I don't know if you'll be able to talk to that, Kate.
Hello, yeah. Here we go. There I am. Yeah, so I'm Kate. I'm the sustainability coordinator. So when it comes to developing the community climate action plan, we would be utilizing the 2016 community greenhouse gas inventory, which outlined what areas within the town had the highest greenhouse gas emitting areas. And then from there, we would do our research to figure out what actions would help to potentially decrease those greenhouse gas emissions to hit those targets. So the 10% target is really just to initiate and keep on track with declining our greenhouse gases. And then the 40% greenhouse gas target by 2040 is in line with some of the federal and provincial level initiatives that are going on. So it kind of rolls in all together. So the plan, there's going to be a lot of research involved with what we need to do, but there are some initial actions that were highlighted in the report, like low vehicle emissions, whether it's hybrid or car sharing or electric vehicles, or green development standards potentially that can be involved with redevelopment or new builds. That is also what are some of the projects that Dufferin County is doing. So that kind of collaborates together, and that's where the piece comes together to hit those targets, if that makes sense. And then their second question with financial implications. So there eventually will be some sort of financial implication when it comes to implementing these measures. I don't know at what cost right now until those measures or actions have been ironed out. But with any action, there will be some sort of financial implication. However, if there are avenues for funding opportunities, grants, or shared costs with different organizations, that will definitely be looked at first and prioritized, and then reevaluate the other actions that might cost more, might have more time involved, and maybe we relook at that and say whether or not is it really reasonable for the town to pursue that. So that's kind of where it comes into play.
Councillor Andrews, follow up.
Yes, thank you again, Your Worship. Ms. Thompson, Thomas, I should say, thank you for your response to those questions. As I dive into the report, I noticed that 66% of the culprits, in fact, is transportation on greenhouse, on our emissions. So I think that we have, as a council, have budgeted at least a progression towards some form of EV vehicle utilization, be that in the Public Works Department, even I guess the bylaw. And I think the other would be even transit too as well. There had been some discussion about that. So this is where the financial impact is in fact going to happen over a period of time. I think it's just the matter of us looking at what is that timeline, how quickly can we end up supporting this, and anything else that I may have from a question perspective, I'll take offline. But I think that we have to be prepared for the financial impact now or soon, because the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to end up being.
Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just curious. So these plans go through, and we did just have a large discussion about this at County Council in the committee meeting. So Your Worship, you weren't there to see that because we're on different committees. There was talk about progress that's being made, you know, with electric vehicles, and the electric vehicle station usage is up significantly. Even though the observation was I don't see people using them, but that's okay. So there's progress being made. But I guess my question is, and it was the same one at the county, how will we gauge this? So we have things set up by 2030. I think it's very benevolent. I've read through the next 5-year plan, which I think is good, but how do we know that we're on progress for 2030? And when we hit 2027 and we're looking like we're going to miss, how will we course correct? And I always feel funny about these things when we have them. And again, my knowledge isn't what the author's knowledge is, but you want to have teeth in it. You don't want to just pass it and go, oh, we did the exercise. It's how do we know that our great little town of Orangeville is gonna follow through on this? You know,
Ms. Thompson.
That's a good question. So for the first question, how will we gauge this? One of the things is definitely through collaboration, whether it's with our upper tier or lower tier or other community stakeholders like Credit Valley Conservation Authority or other environmental groups, interest groups. Another thing is so the town is part of the Partners for Climate Protection program. It's a free program. And there's 5 milestones with it. And part of it, the first one is an inventory. So we only have a 2016 inventory right now, but it's set up where we can update it and measure where we're at now compared to 2016 levels to see whether or not we are on track and have it so that hopefully it is decreasing over time. And if not, then that will help us reevaluate where we're headed. And maybe we do have to revise some of the reduction targets because potentially either financial constraints could be an issue or staff resources for implementing those actions, but at least it gives us a timeline or a measuring stick, and then also allows us the opportunity to revise it if needed to course correct potentially. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to Ms. Thompson. Thank you for the report. Quite detailed. A lot of it's way over my head. So one of the things that the previous council adopted, and I see you've made reference to here, is the tree canopy study. And the document was very unanimously, we wanted to see that tree canopy expand. Are you documenting that, and how are we progressing towards reaching those goals? Because sometimes I sit back and look at development and I see trees disappearing, and it really is concerning. A lot of people reach out to us saying, okay, you know, there's a development and there goes all those trees. And then, but the other hand, we don't ever seem to get an update on how are we getting towards getting that tree canopy up to what we initially approved back in our last term of council.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes, so town staff, we did issue, we're actually doing an assessment. It's almost complete. We're in the works of just tweaking the draft to make it final now, but it's 2 parts. So it's the street tree inventory and also the town-wide tree canopy assessment. So that assessment, there's a lot of information that I would love to share with council once it's finalized. And it does provide a benchmark, a percentage benchmark of where the town's tree canopy is right now, and highlights areas within town where we can plant trees or prioritize it for certain aspects, whether it's social equity or stormwater management. And then from there, with those findings, we could do either outreach programs or certain government policies that could be in place to help conserve the trees, which will also help with reducing greenhouse gases because they do store carbon. So that will be circulated to council. It's just almost done. Just need a couple more weeks.
So Sherwood?
Thank you, Your Worship. One more to Mr. Deluse. One of the most recent projects we did was the Broadway bricks. And I know one of the directions of staff was to increase the number of trees when we did that replacement. I know we had to remove some that were in grave condition, but I believe we increased it. Could you just remind me how many additional trees we added to that when we did that project, if you have that?
Mr. Deluse?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Sherwood. Yes, good memory, Councillor Sherwood. We originally had 91 trees on that overall project. Unfortunately, over the years, it got reduced to about 61 through attrition or, damages and so on and so forth. Through the project that we just went through with the Broadway bricks, and we're just about to complete the final touches this month, we are back up to 88. So we are still 3 down. However, as Kate alluded to, we have completed or just about to complete our urban forestry program. And that study has identified numerous locations where trees can be planted. So I'm confident that the 3 that we lost on that project will be more than made up elsewhere.
Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you to Ms. Thompson. Thank you very much for your report, Ms. Thompson. I have 2 questions. The first question is, when will there be another greenhouse gas inventory to update the 2016 so we can kind of have a benchmark of success? And my second question, as it relates to the new fire hall that we will be building, at the last meeting, there was discussion about making it net zero, and we're going to consider that again. There were some financial issues involved. But looking at this, 66% of our community emissions are from transportation. So I'm wondering if there's a cost benefit to going through with the fire hall, or if it's so minimal, the greenhouse gas that would be emitted, it might not be worthwhile. Thank you.
I see Ms. Savage going for her mic first, so we'll turn it over to you first, and then perhaps Ms. Thompson can fill in the difference.
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Prendergast. Yes, it's a good question about the fire hall. At this point, when we ask and we speak to our architects and we benchmark other projects that have gone fire hall to a net zero standard, it's really hard to determine how much energy are you saving. What would our targets be? We could loosely put them in place, but again, it's another moving target. We're not sure. We could do our best by putting in the infrastructure, and maybe Ms. Thompson might know a little bit more how to target that.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes, so for the new net zero fire hall, if it were to be net zero, I actually did a little bit of research on this when preparing, helping for the funding. So there is quite a bit of work to make a net zero internally and also externally with the building. So either solar panels or geothermal heat pump systems. I don't know exactly how much that will reduce the greenhouse gases. It reduces it significantly, but not 100%. So I think about 90% reduction in greenhouse gases, I believe, from the feasibility study. But it's not 100%, but still it's a whole lot less than what it could be. So yeah, net zero.
Councillor Prendergast, do you have follow-up?
Yes, thank you very much. That's all.
Was there any additional questions from members of council? Seeing none, I will call the vote as listed in the agenda. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Item 12.6 is, thank you, Ms. Thompson and Mr. Deluse for being here too. Item 12.6 is amendments to the Boulevard Cafe and Merchandise Display Bylaws. The recommendation in the agenda is that report INS-2023-28 amendments to Boulevard Cafe and Merchandise Display Bylaws be received, and that council pass the bylaw included as attachment number 1 to this report to amend Boulevard Cafe bylaw number 2003-4 as amended to extend the seasonal period for Boulevard Cafes on a permanent basis, and that council pass the bylaw included as attachment number 3 to this report to amend the display of merchandise bylaw number 2003-31 as amended to extend the seasonal period for merchandise display on a permanent basis and provide criteria for temporary merchandise display tents. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Was there questions? Councillor Andrews and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. I think the merchandise display tent concept is a great idea. Having seen it, of course, with our Orangeville Blues and Jazz Festival, we've seen it at times, I think, just on a casual, maybe test basis. But I think it's a great idea to enhance some of the businesses, especially in the downtown core, to hopefully gain some additional business, but also, of course, gain some notoriety for our downtown core. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Deputy Mayor Taylor, and then Councillor Stephen and Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this issue, there's a few questions. I don't know if you want me. Do you want me to do them all, or yeah? Okay. So first of all, I think the 0.5 setback on this makes a ton of sense. There is concerns overall about the bylaw guidelines, and I think this will go to you, Mr. Ward. But it's the 1.5. 1.5 is the bylaw. Yet the guidelines are 1.8, and I think it's confusing some of the businesses because they've tried to explain to me why this is unfair. But now there's issues with the new configuration of the Broadway Bricks project, and what folks are saying is that it's not right that the bylaw officer gets to have this extra room to decide if they're meeting it or not. It should be what the bylaw says or the guideline says. And I'm just wondering if you can help mentor us to help them when we're having these discussions about what's the right way. How would you phrase that when they're talking about their concerns?
Mr. Ward, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So you are correct in that the bylaw states a minimum path of travel of 1.5 meters, and that is different from the guidelines, which state a minimum path of travel of 1.8 meters. And there's a reason for that. That's because the bylaw is very prescriptive. It doesn't allow for fluctuation or flexibility in its application. Guidelines, however, give us a little more discretion to apply a bit of judgment in extenuating circumstances. So the bylaw requirement is universal. It applies a minimum path of travel throughout, no matter what is around the Boulevard Cafe. The guidelines are moving towards more of a requirement to require the cafe spaces to be separated from the building wall to provide a consistent linear path of travel along the building frontage. And the reason for that is because traditionally, we offered flexibility in some spaces being oriented right abutting the building, some being situated in the boulevard. That resulted in a meandering pedestrian path of travel. And with some of the replacement efforts through the Broadway Bricks project, we introduced bigger tree pit areas so that the tree health would be improved. We introduced some other features, et cetera. Those features unfortunately pose some conflicts with maintaining that 1.5 meter path of travel requirement. So moving it more towards being linear along the building frontage, we recognize that the frontage isn't straight and linear. There's delineation, there's some architectural elements of the building, there's doors opening, et cetera. So there's a preference for us to increase that slightly by 0.3 meters, hence the 1.8 requirement. And again, having it in guidelines gives staff some flexibility to look at maybe a one-off circumstance where it's difficult to meet that, and then we could work with them to maybe reduce it down to 1.5 if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Deputy Mayor, you have a couple of other questions?
If I may, Your Worship, thank you. So first of all, the statement is, I'm very supportive of cafes, and I think we should be encouraging our businesses. It opens up their footprint, allows them to make more money. We want them all to do well. So let's just get that thought out of the way. The Jersey barriers that have to be up, they serve a purpose for sure. There's safety. There's some outdoor cafes that you just can't sit out there unless the Jersey barriers are there. It's not safe. My question would be, is there any way, like, if people were to ask me about our downtown, I would say you should come and see it. Like, it's quite quaint. I'm proud of it. I think most people are proud of it. It's very beautiful. It's got It's got a great feel to it. The Jersey barriers detract from the feel of it. And I'm not sure, Mr. Ward, if this is you. I'm staring at you, but they don't look like the rest of downtown. And I know we need them, but I'm just wondering, is there other things that we could do? Is there things we could do to make it look nicer? Like, I think, as an example, Guelph has the similar situation. And in my mind, I don't think that they look like what we look like. Is there things that we could do as a community to change that and make it look more appealing?
I see Mr. Jaleesa's screen has lit up, so I'm wondering if I'll turn it over to him maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship, and all good points, Deputy Mayor Taylor. You're right. Guelph has a similar type of setup. They do have barriers, but they are plastic. They're called Triton barriers, and they're different colors depending on the motif, and they're filled with water. So a little bit softer approach. I can tell you, though, and maybe Mr. Ward can confirm this, that we have had some discussions with the rustic. I believe those are the Jersey barriers that you're referring to at the corner of Broadway and First. And my understanding is, in speaking with them through, I don't want to say rumor, but certainly there has been some discussion that they will not be placing their Boulevard Cafe in that area anymore. So the need for Jersey barriers disappears. With that said, though, that's not precluding them from coming back to council. And my suggestion would be that we could look at an alternative such as what Guelph uses and certainly have that in mind. And perhaps this will become something that we can place in the operating and/or capital budget for council's consideration for 2024 if the need were to arise. Thank you, Your Worship.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Dillis. I was not going to bring up the specific business. So since you did, I want Rustic to have their patio. I think it's great. I think they do a good job. I just wish it looked a little bit more appealing, and I'm sure that's what they're thinking as well. My last question is, there was a kerfuffle amongst businesses recently when the warm weather spiked, and some of the businesses were a little caught off guard and didn't have their applications in, and therefore had to take their patios down, and were quite upset because they lost revenue at a period of time when the weather was nice, and you know, it was unfortunate that that was the case. Some businesses were proactive and had put their applications in. I know we can't hold everybody's hand, but is there a way as we go into 2024, can we somehow work with the BIA or send something out to those businesses, reminding them in February or what have you that, you know, they should proactively get it out? I mean, it wouldn't cost the town anything to do that, but I think I'd feel better, and maybe we're helping them with a service that, you know, they've got so many other things on their mind, they forget that March could spike, April could spike, and then they're going to miss out if they don't get it in, because it's not a big deal, right? It's 5 days out. It's an annual application. I'm just saying, can we help them next year somehow to ensure that they don't miss this? And I don't know who that goes to. So Mr.
Who wants that one? Mr. Jalees?
Thank you, Your Worship. And certainly those are all good points. Mr. Ward could probably fill in the gap here, but certainly one of the reasons that not only were there some changes made to accommodate boulevard cafes, in other words, the cafes were moved to the actual boulevard to leave the sidewalks open. Mr. Ward spoke to meandering and pedestrians having to go through certain areas to be able to clear the area when they were walking up or down Broadway. So said, as part of the design for the boulevard bricks on Broadway, or the replacement, we moved the boulevard cafes to the actual boulevard. I think a lot of businesses this year, and I think I know exactly, I won't mention any names, I've learned that lesson, but certainly they were caught a little bit off guard and weren't aware of some of the new requirements. Had they applied, we would certainly have mentioned that through consultation or through planning, but certainly I think that's what happened there. But to answer your question, I'll defer back to Mr. Ward because he governs or monitors that permitting process, but certainly we could certainly take a proactive approach, meet with those businesses and meet with the BIA. That's the desire of council.
I'm actually going to turn this one over to Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So bylaw enforcement was, of course, apprised of some of those circumstances and had some of those discussions with certain businesses that perhaps were not aware of it being in place. So if I could just suggest for staff to take this back and take a multi-divisional approach to it, and it allow us to take that back to see what would be the best way for us to get just a notification to them, just to let them know, hey, this is coming, the warm weather is coming in advance of next year's season.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Councillor Stevens and then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm on accessibility in Orangeville here this term. And one of the things is I'd like to see a uniform, like, you know, on one side of the sidewalk compared to, you know, back and forth. And I did have a discussion with Mr. Ward before, but I just wanted to put it out there that, you know, it would be nice to see that straight line for people walking up and down Broadway.
And I believe that's what Mr. Ward was just referring to as well when we were talking about the setbacks. Did you have any additional comments, Mr. Ward?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not much further to add other than, again, it's guideline based. There might be a very unique circumstances, say in proximity to an intersection where actually moving it out near the roadway would cause undue challenges with accessing the intersection crossing. So that might be an example of a circumstance whereby it would be more preferential to have the cafe space abutting the building as opposed to positioned out into the right of way.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. I do have a question regarding the report, but I did want to mention to Deputy Mayor Taylor that perhaps you could take this back to the BIA board, suggest to them, because they're very good at sending out communications to the members, I think we should put the onus back on the BIA to reach out to them maybe in January and February and remind their members to get the application in. I think we could take this away from our staff and put it back on them because most of the Boulevard cafes are within the downtown period. So that would just be a suggestion that I would offer you to maybe take to the board. And my next question to Mr. Ward regarding the tents on the boulevard, I just wanted to clarify. So there's up to 6 spaces of eligible parking spaces that a cafe boulevard can apply for to take 6 space, but they're not allowed to put canopy tents on there unless it's an event, a sanctioned event.
Mr. Ward?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So just to clarify, the outdoor cafe bylaw does not include permission for a tent or canopy on the cafe space. The merchandise display bylaw does allow for tents, and that's not included in any lay-by parking space. Now, just further to that, in terms of any temporary event permissions, that is distinct and separate from any permissions under the Boulevard Cafe or merchandise display program.
Councillor Prendergast and then Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. This is more of a comment for Deputy Mayor Taylor because you are on the BIA. I see the extended date to October 31st, and immediately I think of Boo on Broadway, very popular family event where children dress up and they visit the downtown area and all the businesses. It's often quite packed on the sidewalks and sometimes bordering on unsafe. So I was wondering if you could take to the BIA the possibility of closing down Broadway for this event, especially if we have nice weather. We'll see extended patios, extended tents, and I'm just thinking ahead to next fall, and that might ameliorate this event for the town. Thank you.
Great idea, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. My question's real quick. We've mentioned it a couple of times. Now, the BIA, I assume they were in favor of this. I don't see anything in the report saying they were, but I assume they are.
Mr. Ward?
Through Your Worship, I did get comments from the BIA. They were similar to Council or Deputy Mayor Taylor's observations with respect to the understanding of how the guidelines work in conjunction with the language in the bylaw around the separation requirements. So it's something we can take back and take a look at the guidelines more particularly for clarity around the language, just to make that a little more straightforward for the reader.
Thank you. Was there any additional questions or comments from any members of council? No, seeing none, we will call the vote on the motion that was in the report. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Item 12.7 is the appointment of risk management officials and a risk management inspector under Part 4 of the Clean Water Act 2006. The recommendation is that report INS 2023-36, appointment of risk management officials and a risk management inspector under Part 4 of the Clean Water Act 2006 be received, and that council pass a bylaw appointing Rebecca Smart as the town's risk management official and risk management inspector, and appoint Blue Metric Environmental Inc. as alternate risk management officials and risk management inspectors pursuant to subsection 47-6 of the Clean Water Act 2006 for the purposes of enforcing Part 4 of the Act, and that the clerk be directed to circulate the bylaw appointing the town's risk management officials and risk management inspectors to the Credit Valley Source Protection Authority and issue certificates of appointment bearing the clerk's signature to the appointed risk management officials and risk management inspectors pursuant to subsection 47-7 of the Act. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor McIntosh. Any questions or comments? Councillor Andrews.
I just wanted to, through you, Your Worship, congratulate Ms. Smart on the completion of her successful training, which is critically important as part of this particular role.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Item 12.8 is proposed amendments to the Credit Valley, Toronto, and Region Central Lake Ontario CTC Source Protection Plan. The recommendation in the agenda is that report INS-2023-39, proposed amendments to the Credit Valley, Toronto, and Region Central Lake Ontario CTC Source Protection Plan be received, and that Council supports in principle the amendments proposed to the CTC Source Protection Plan pursuant to subsection 34-3 of the Clean Water Act 2006, as outlined in the letter included as attachment number 1 of this report, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Credit Valley Source Protection Authority in response to their request for comments. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Stevens, and seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We'll move into section 13, which is correspondence. There's a recommendation that the following correspondence be received. The Dufferin County Support Bill 5, 13.1, 13.2 Township of Melanchthon proposed fee by Enbridge Gas, 13.3 Township of Melanchthon Support Bill 5, 13.4 Township of Mulmer Highway 10 Traffic and Road Study, 13.5, a letter from Althea Ali, Dufferin County Multicultural Foundation, and 13.6, a letter from Peter Guardhouse from the Orangeville Community Band. Can I have a motion to receive all items of correspondence, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Stevens, was there questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Taylor and then Councillor Andrews.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to speak to item 13.6. Really nice letter from Mr. Guardhouse, and I think what he's saying about the Orangeville Community Band and essentially he wants an art facility. I think that'd be great. I just think we should set expectations, though, that unfortunately the town has a whole list of things that we're involved in right now, and that art center, although I think it would be amazing for our town, it's going to be very difficult for this council to be able to follow through on wishes of something like that at this point in time. However, it's been bandied about. I've been here 20 years. I've heard it from 4 different mayors. It was brought to you and I informally the other night about somebody else saying they want it. I think it'd be great. It's just, I just want to, someone's going to take the time to write us a letter. I think we should respond. And my feeling would be is unfortunately, that's not something that's going to make our term or probably the next one. There's just too many other things going on.
And just to add to that, Deputy Mayor, I just wanted to let the writer of this, Mr. Guardhouse, know as well that this item is actually identified in the town's cultural plan. So this is something that we've had our eyes on. We know that it's a necessity. When that plan was put together, I was on the cultural plan task force at the time, or the Arts and Culture Committee as it was named in the day. And we've been actively searching for places that it could work. And it's been a difficult one to come to fruition, but my hope in that my lifetime, it will come to fruition in this community as well. Councillor Andrews, you had a comment, and then I believe Councillor Sherwood.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to comment regarding Mr. Guardhouse request regarding some space for possible storage. I'm not sure if this is really part of the well, it is part of the picture. I know that we're talking about a eventual arts center, but maybe through staff, is this something that we might be able to at least temporarily provide some assistance? I see that Ms. Savage is potentially going to respond to this.
Ms. Savage.
Thank you. Through Mayor Post to Councillor Andrews. I've already connected with Mr. Guardhouse. We've forwarded a link so that he could fill out the form for facility rental, and then we can get a better idea of what is the space he requires. Is there any unique features, cold storage? I'm not very well versed with how to store large instruments, but this way he can tell us what his needs are, and then staff are going to look into it. I will preface that conversation by saying space is very limited, especially since COVID. There is a lot of residents, organizations who really want to use their local community center. We have noticed a major increase in rentals and usage of our facilities. So there's no promises made, but at least we've started the conversation.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I was quite interested to hear that you had mentioned that this was in the cultural plan, because I was going to ask Ms. Savage, knowing that she's only been here a short time. I know you've memorized the recreational plan that we were given a while ago, so you're going to know this answer right off the top. I don't think anything like that was ever thought of or suggested in that recreation master plan, if I'm correct.
Ms. Savage.
Through you, Mayor Post. Unfortunately, I have not memorized it. I'm terribly sorry. I will brush up on it. I don't recall any significant references to an arts and culture center. As Mayor Post suggested, it is in the current tourism plan. It is scheduled to be a year 5 objective, and this was carried over from the previous cultural plan, 2014 to 2018.
Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is to Mr. Koshalak. 13.2, I was quite surprised to read that report and find out that Enbridge Gas is now charging for locates on town property. Should we be charging them rent for using our land?
Mr. Kostelak, would you like to take that one?
Sure, through Your Worship to Councillor McIntosh. Shortly after Enbridge sent that out saying that they were going to start charging for locates from everybody, there was quickly a letter sent out to everybody saying, we're putting it on hold until there's consultation, because I think that question came up, you're in our right of way. So I think there's going to be a lot more discussion and communication with them. So right now, any fees are on hold with them. There's a bit of a change in the way locates are done now. They're trying to have the locates paid by the person who is requiring the locates. In the past, it was done by the utility owner, but they're trying to change the focus to whoever requires the locates to have them pay. So I think there's a lot of items to be looked at as part of that process, and we'll have more information probably in the upcoming year how things will be done.
Thank you. I'll put my question on hold.
Councillor Sherwood.
Through you to actually Councillor McIntosh, just to appease your mind a bit, having been in the industry before, I can assure you that Enbridge is taxed heavily for all pipeline that they put throughout our town. So we do get some revenue source from them.
Was there any additional questions or comments on any of the items of correspondence? Then I will call the vote. All in favor of receipt? And that's carried unanimously. Item 14 is the committee and board minutes. There's a recommendation that the minutes of the following meetings be received. 14.1 is the June 14th, 2022 Business and Economic Development Committee meeting minutes. 14.2 is from June 29th, 2022, the Cultural Plan Task Force meeting minutes. 14.3 is from July 12th, 2022. It's the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes. And 14.4 from March 16th, 2023, the Orangeville BIA minutes. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Sherwood, was there questions or comments on any items? Deputy Mayor Taylor.
I just think it's important that we talk about the dates. And could I just defer it to you to speak to the dates? Yeah, like.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you. I know it came up in some discussion with council, and if the general public is curious about seeing the agenda and, of course, the various committee reports, typically what happens is there is a period of time when the committees, in fact, meet, and because of the hiatus that existed with the conclusion of the previous term of council, committees that were meeting quarterly or whatever period of time was, in fact, scheduled as part of the terms of reference, Each one of those committees that had reports from 2022, in fact, ended prior to the fall of 2022 election. And then subsequently, many of them have just renewed in this term and are beginning. So there will be a more consistent reporting schedule and probably a lot more frequent meetings taking place in the coming months during this term.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Was there any additional questions? I will call the vote on receipt of those. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. There was no notices of motion prior to the meeting, but at this time I will relinquish the chair to the Deputy Mayor as I have a notice of motion for tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So first off, Council, this motion will be a notice of motion to illuminate Town Hall on May 6th and May 7th for the coronation of the King, with the cost coming from special events public relations budget line. And so first order of business, because it's time sensitive, we will need to determine whether or not we can waive notice. Could I have a motion to do that? Councillor Sherwood, Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? Yes. Okay. Very good. So you're going to make the motion, Mayor Post? Okay, so you've made the motion. Is there someone that would like to second? Councillor Andrews, thank you very much. And so the motion itself, just before we get into debate, I will read it. So on May 6th and May 7th, 2023, communities throughout the United Kingdom and Commonwealth will mark the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III with coordinated illuminations of iconic locations. To echo this event, the Department of the Canadian Heritage is leading an initiative to illuminate Canada buildings and landmarks, and you are invited to participate by illuminating local landmarks in royal emerald green hue. Examples of this. So what you're saying here is maybe this is where you would describe to us what you would like, Mayor Post.
Thank you very much, Chair Taylor. If I could.
Yes, please.
This week, I received an email from the Chief of Protocol for the Province of Ontario, and they're leading the initiative to illuminate Canadian landmarks in various buildings, such as our Town Hall in Royal Emerald Green in honor of the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III for May 6th and May 7th. I have already verified with town staff that there is a budget for this type of event under the special events line. And just for Council's reference, when we illuminated Town Hall for the passing of the Queen, it was done for 1 week, and the cost was approximately $800. So the thought from town staff is that it will be significantly below that to do it just for the 2 or 3 days. The motion would be to direct town staff to go ahead and pursue that. And we can even report back with what the amount was when that's completed. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Comments from council? No? Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. I don't know if this is an opportunity where we want to add to your motion or I have to put a separate motion, but I would also like to see a photograph or a picture of our King once he's coronated in our council chambers. I think that we've always had the Queen. She doesn't seem to be here right now, but I think that that's something we can do. So, Madam Clerk, would that be something that we could ask staff to do it later, or should it be added to this?
Any comments from council? Oh, sorry. Ms. Khan, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we can certainly incorporate that as part of the motion, or I can just take that back as part of the procedural matters of council chambers and look into that under my clerk's duties.
Okay. Any further comments? We'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Being none, that passes unanimously. And I will turn the vote back, or turn the chair back to yourself.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. We are now at there was no other notices of motion, unless anybody else had any that they wanted to bring forward tonight. Seeing none, we'll move into the new business portion. Councillor Sherwood, you can start with new business.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to invite the general public. I really would encourage you to get tickets to see this new Canadian Curling Club show. We had the opportunity to see it over the weekend, and I'll tell you, it's a fabulous, fabulous production. So if you have an opportunity, I'll tell you the tickets are cheap, and it's great entertainment, and you won't be disappointed. And it runs till May 14th. And maybe think about subscribing and taking an opportunity to see what the future looks like for future productions.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. I echo your comments. It was a fantastic show. Was there additional items of new business? Okay, seeing none, we will move into question period. We'll start. Mona, was there anybody on the line who was looking to join us through question period? No. If there's anybody in the gallery who wishes to ask a question, please approach the delegation stand. You can turn on the mic, have a seat, state your name and address for the record.
And this chair seems to move around. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Post, members of the council, deputy mayor, and members of the staff.
If you can just state your name and your address for the record, Mr. Christo.
My name is Nick Garisto. I live on 20 Paula Court. Okay. And it's L9W5V1.
Thank you, Mr. Gristo. What's your question for tonight?
Well, I have a couple of questions here. It kind of, I usually am not the guy that writes letters to the editor, but unfortunately I had to write one. And that was from the previous mayor. A lot of members of this council, they were present at the time. That's related to those water meters. I have a major concern with that. And the reason is they're very costly to change. You're looking 6 million for sure, but I can guarantee you they can go up even to close to 10 million.
Mr. Gristo, you've stated your concerns previously with the water meter.
Yes, I did,
excuse me, Mr. Gristo, was there a specific question that you had for?
A specific question for this council is, are you going to hold a public meeting before those meters and the money will be spent? That is the direct question.
Mr. Gristo, I'll turn it over to Mr. Koselak, who can talk about when the project is beginning. There will not be another public meeting, but Mr. Koselak can speak to the process.
Yep, through your worship, actually we're out for an RFP right now to select the water meters and the provider for it. The submission's been made. They'll be reviewed over the next month or so before a decision's made with an anticipated start date of the fall. The water meters, most of them are 20 years old plus, and much like anything else you have, if you have a 20-year-old car, it's getting tired. It's time to be replaced. And they don't last forever, much like a road, much like anything else you own, they need to be replaced. They don't function very well. They start to wear down and we need maintenance on them. With the new ones that are being installed, they're being done with a radio frequency. So if anybody right now has a water meter and there's issues being read, we won't have that problem. Water meters right now have a wire going to a puck outside the house. You won't have a puck outside your house. There won't be an issue with any wires being cut, and they'll be more efficient. They have a 20-year life battery in them, so there should be no issues during that time. So I'm not aware of a referendum or anything happening. It's been approved and proceeding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koselak. Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
Yes, through you to Mr. Gristo. Mr. Gristo, you've mentioned multiple times to have a public engagement. So I just want to refresh your memory. In 2021, during our budget deliberations, which are open to the public, a capital project in the amount of $3.9 million to Camano Waterworks Reserves was passed by this council. That was public consultation there. That budget process is open to anyone, and you're coming up with figures that you have no facts on. I'm sure that the cost will be more than the 3.9 capital, but that is in the approved budget. It is on our website, and public were always open to come in and delegate and discuss that. So I think this is mute, what you can continually come to our council and ask about. The public engagement's been done, the approval's been done, the project is going forward.
Madam Mayor, if I can respond. To my knowledge, you were a member of this council. I didn't see no public meeting called that these meters, there was going to be change. And I can tell you, you didn't.
Mr. Gristo.
And you were one of the members that supported. When you spend, excuse me, Madam Mayor, do not interfere. I'm responding. to Councilor Sherwood. If I am knowledgeable in those meters, I can tell you, I fought them tooth and nail 20 years ago. I didn't want them. I knew there was going to be a costly process. You as a council, when you spend that kind of money, I'm a taxpayer. I need to be knowledgeable of that.
Mr.
I didn't see it on the paper. Excuse me.
Mr.
I
Gristo,
didn't
with
see
due
it on-
respect, no, I'm chairing the meeting. Just give me one moment here. When we do capital projects, we do not do a public consultation or a public meeting with every capital project. And this would be included in the capital projects. So we deliberated them at budget time, as we do with roads projects, with other large capital funded projects, where we do spend large dollars of taxpayers' money on the must needed assessment or asset management. And this is an asset management piece. The replacement of these water meters, they're at their lifespan. This is an asset management project. As Councillor Sherwood indicated, the public consultation was done through budget consultations, and our capital works is going to continue. Did you have another item that you wanted to ask a question on?
Well, I want to, Mayor Post, I want to respond to you. Since the item came on the citizen, I had a lot of response from the residents of the town of Orangeville. And they told me, you're right. We didn't even know that the meters, there was going to be changed. I understand what Mr. Kozelek says. They're 20 years old.
They need to.
But we spent 1.6 million that time, and I was the only dissenter that I did not support those meters.
Councillor McIntosh.
Unfortunately.
Thank you. Mr. Gristo, do you propose we do away with water meters and have a flat rate?
I'm not
Yes or no?
proposing
Yes or no?
anything.
Yes or no,
No,
sir?
I'm not proposing anything. I'm proposing to call a public meeting because you, sir, and the rest of the members, you're gonna spend over $6 million to put these meters. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Gristo. Have a good evening. Was there anybody else who wished to speak to an item or ask a question tonight? If you can turn on the microphone, please. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
It's on. We're good. Go ahead, Mr. Ugolini. We just need your name and address for the record, please.
Rick Ugolini, and I've been a taxpayer in this town for 51 years.
We just need your address, actually.
I'd rather not give it.
Do you need a, that's fine. Okay.
First off, I've made an observation, as a matter of fact, yesterday, and I really don't know who to go to. Talk about this tree envelope you were just talking about a little earlier on, and over at the pond on Hanson Boulevard there in College, beavers are taking the trees down. I just noticed it, and who do you go to or what do you do?
We do have a procedure for that, and actually we just recently planted some new trees as part of the CVC's tree planting program on Earth Day. And one of the big reasons that we chose the location we did was because beavers had taken down some of the trees in that area. So as a collective group of volunteers, we planted 275 replacement trees as part of the Earth Day movement through the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. And Mr. Kozelek may be able to speak to other areas where similar items are an issue.
Through your worship, and that's one of the things we do, monitor trees where they are impacted by animals or by development to ensure more planting is done. We can follow up offline and talk to you a little bit more about the areas that you have and have somebody take a look at them to have more planting done. But it's a great initiative that was done with the CVC's coordination, and I think it really helps greening the town.
No, I was just wondering one thing, like, I looked around for a beaver. I mean, and where would it go? Inside the culvert? That's the only, and if it builds a dam inside the culvert, what happens to the water under the houses?
Mr. Kozelek?
Through your worship, if there's a beaver that does build a dam, we'd remove it to make sure it doesn't affect any of the houses. It's one of the things, typically they'll do a baffle on the culvert. Typically you drill holes into the culvert so then the flow goes around. So even if they block the end, the
Oh, no,
water
like
still flows through.
there's spaces like this. Just a great, okay. I just thought, somebody should know about it because so far as what, about half a dozen trees gone and they're chewing on more.
No, that's a good question. Thank you, Mr. Ugolini.
Sensitive receptor. Why was it brought in the first place?
The sensitive receptor program was a motion of council back in 2016. And it was just a change to the burning bylaw. It was a decision of council of the day, which none of us were a part of. And it was a decision to try and eliminate or to make it life more friendly to people who did have sensitivities to wood smoke burning.
Now, are you looking at changing the parameters, like only burning seasoned hardwood, or can you burn trash?
In order to get a burn permit within the town of Orangeville, there are regulations that need to be followed, including clean wood burning and things like that. They're not allowed to burn garbage within town lines or anything like that.
You're not supposed to?
As part of, to get a burn permit?
You do a few places right now that have burn barrels in the backyard full of trash.
Well, and when you run into one of those, you can call that into the fire department. And one of the things that they do is come and inspect and fine or charge a fine, I guess. They'll fine anybody who's contravening that bylaw because there is a burn bylaw in place.
Now, as far as it goes, sensitive receptor, there are some people sensitive to smells. They get migraines, get sick. And I've actually been there. I'm not that sensitive, well, by smell, but there are other people that I know that on some occasions we've had to close windows because whatever they're burning, pressure treated wood or whatever, made our eyes burn, and it was in the house and it was just a mess. Had to clear the house out and turn the air on.
And any complaints about burning like that can be directed directly to the fire department, and they will come and inspect any burn complaints and will ensure that the person has a fire permit and that they're burning according to the regulations and all of those things. Those can be reported directly to the non-emergency line of the fire department.
Now, I have several things written down here, but another thing, in the past months, you've been talking about town hall meetings. And would it not be a good idea maybe to call a town hall meeting on this new fire hall? So people know what's going on, cost, what's involved, building size, like everything seems to be hush hush.
There are reports about the fire hall. Maybe Ms. Savage can speak to where all the reports are located and online.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I believe there was a report in November of 2022, and then I recently brought back a report in April, just past month, and it did identify size and where we're at with the budget. The most recent report does focus on the net zero standard. I will be returning to council again in June to talk about the status and the budget for the fire hall so that council can make a more informed decision as to which direction we go. But if you'd like, we could have a chat and I could fill you in. Sure. So I will share my phone number through the clerk.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Savage. Wonderful.
Also, I'd like to mention the staff you have here. Just fantastic.
They are.
They're kind. They're I don't know. I haven't had a problem with any of the staff. And they've been great to me. And if people would just, I don't know, maybe make more calls toward the staff to find out things. They're just so easy to deal with and very professional. It's been great. Any questions I've had, I've gotten answers. And you don't always get that everywhere. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, Mr. Ugolini. We do have fantastic staff who are always here to help serve the residents as best as they can. And just one last comment towards your town hall. We are doing a town hall, an open town hall forum on May 24th. If you want to save the date, it'll be at Tony Rose in the banquet hall starting at 6:30. We will have some of our amazing town staff there to talk about some of the big projects that are going on. And there will also be an open Q&A session where residents can ask questions about any of the other projects or items that they want to know about. So stay tuned tuned. We'll be doing those more frequently, and it's our way of trying to get back out into the public and bring more information. We know council meetings aren't necessarily always the most friendly way to communicate with residents, so we're trying to find additional ways to do it. So that's one of the initiatives that we've started. So May 24th is the first one. And thank you for being here tonight. Was there any other questions for question period? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to bylaws. There's a recommendation that the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. A bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of taxes required for the town of Orangeville for the year of 2023 and for the collection of the County of Dufferin and education taxes. A bylaw to amend bylaw 2003-31 as amended to regulate the display of merchandise on sidewalks. A bylaw to amend bylaw 2003-41 as amended to permit boulevard cafes in the central business district. A bylaw to appoint Rebecca Smart and Blue Metric Environmental Inc. as a risk management officials and risk management inspectors, and a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its closed and regular council meetings held tonight, May 1st, 2023. Can I have a motion for all of those? Councillor Stevens and Deputy Mayor Taylor. Any questions or comments? I'll call the vote. All in favor? And those are carried unanimously. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh and Deputy Mayor Taylor, all in favor. Carried unanimously. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.